Hey everyone, it's Alexander, the real Mr. Robinson. Welcome to the channel. This is my review for Atlantis, The Lost Empire, which came out in 2001, 20 years ago, is the fourth film in Disney's post-Renaissance and is their 41st movie overall. The movie is set in the early 20th century, 1914 to be exact, and our main character is Milo Thatch, voiced by Michael J. Fox. His actual job is working in the boiler room at the Smithsonian Institute in Washington, D.C., but he has a real fascination for the lost city of Atlantis and believes that it actually exists. So when he comes across an old journal that his grandfather had that leads to the actual lost city of Atlantis, an expedition is set up to head down there, and we find out along the way that there's some more sinister plans with this expedition, not just for discovery's sake. Now, last week when I reviewed The Emperor's New Groove, I referred to this movie here, Atlantis: The Lost Empire, as the Black Cauldron 2.0. And I feel like I may have worried some of you with that statement, because I reviewed The Black Cauldron earlier this year, and I really didn't like it. But in the case of Atlantis: The Lost Empire, I actually like this movie quite a bit. I remember seeing it in theaters when it came out, but this is the first time I've seen the movie since its theatrical release, and I'm probably one of the few people to have seen it in theaters. Because much like with The Black Cauldron, this movie cost a lot of money, and it was a total bomb. This movie just didn't catch on with the general public 20 years ago, but since then it's become sort of a cult classic. It's been regarded as one of the more underrated Disney movies out there, and like I said before, I like this movie quite a bit. Even rewatching it as an adult, I think there's a lot to admire about it. For one, it's a more mature Disney movie, not really in terms of content, but more in the sense that it's supposed to be a more straightforward adventure film, kind of in the vein of Indiana Jones or something out of Jules Verne. There's not a lot in this movie that you could look at and specifically say, this feels like a Disney movie. It's a very straightforward adventure film that happens to be disguised as a Disney movie. And I think the look of this film is what really makes it for me. It's got an amazing look to it, not just in terms of the animation, which is still gorgeous, but the character designs are pretty unique. The culture that they built surrounding the lost continent of Atlantis is very inspiring, and I love the steampunk look to it. With all the ships and just the overall aesthetic, it kind of reminds me of Dinotopia. You remember those books where dinosaurs and humans coexisted in a steampunk type world? That's what Atlantis: The Lost Empire really reminded me of. Most of the characters are actually pretty charming and likable. Milo is the main character, and as I mentioned before, he's voiced by Michael J. Fox. And for me, Milo's design is sort of how I pictured Bruce Banner to be before the MCU came around. He's very nerdy, he's kind of socially awkward, but he's very intelligent, and he's part of this expedition for a reason. He's not just the helpless nerd that doesn't belong with the jocks. I mean, they do point that out several times, but he's very important to this expedition. He is the main reason why this expedition is happening. Well, I mean, he's the main reason to get to Atlantis, but the main reason is just mainly profit. And that's where the villain of the film comes in. James Garner voices Commander Rourke, and when he first pops up in the movie, he comes across as a very level-headed and calm commander, and you can tell that this guy is leader material, but later down the line, it's revealed that he's the main villain of the film, and he's solely on this expedition for money. And I feel like Commander Rourke might be the earliest example of the twist Disney villain, where there's this character that seems nice and is with the heroes a lot of the time, but when you get to the halfway point, guess what? This guy's the villain. And I know there's some other characters that have preceded him that have been with the hero's side beforehand, like Jafar from Aladdin or Clayton from Tarzan, but I mean, come on, those two characters look like bad guys. Commander Rourke's design isn't necessarily villainous. He just looks like a really tough military leader, and he just seems level-headed throughout most of the movie. That is, of course, until we get to the middle and his true plans come to light. So in a sense, that's a little bit of a negative, just because Disney has been doing this a lot in their revival era with the twist villain, that watching this movie again, even though I've seen it before, it just felt a little tired. And I wonder if this was the movie that kind of influenced this idea for Disney to follow up on. It's honestly hard to tell because, like I said earlier, this movie didn't do well. I mean, it did well enough to get a direct-to-video sequel in 2003, but to give you an idea of just how massive of a flop this movie was, back at Disneyland, the old submarine voyage was closed, and it was going to be rethemed to Atlantis: The Lost Empire. And when you watch the film's first action scene involving the submarine, you think to yourself, this would have made a really cool ride. If Disney had really just stuck with it and rethemed the submarine voyage to Atlantis, I think it would have been a really awesome ride. But, you know, at the end of the day, money talks, and that ride was closed for a total of 9 years. Just imagine that. The ride closed in its original form in 1998, and it didn't reopen until 2007. It was rethemed to Finding Nemo, but the thing is, it was based on a movie that came out 4 years before its reopening. That's insane! I imagine if Atlantis was a bigger hit, the submarine voyage would have reopened a lot sooner. So, I hate to get off topic, but any chance I have to talk about a Disney or Universal theme park, I'll take it. Back to Atlantis: The Lost Empire. I don't have much else to say about the movie itself. For me, it's like Disney wanted to try to do what they did with Black Cauldron again. And yeah, the movie flopped like the Black Cauldron did, but in terms of actual quality, I think this movie succeeds. Because, yeah, it's disappointing that it didn't make money, but 20 years later, it still has a lot going for it. And on that end, I'd say it's good, but it's not great. While the animation is astounding, it's got some fun characters, the steampunk look is incredible. I just like the way this movie looks overall. There's nothing about it that really blew my mind. It was a fun adventure film at the end of the day, but I don't think it's a movie that anyone would consider to be one of Disney's greats. So it's serviceable, but it's not mind-blowing. And there you go, that's my review for Atlantis: The Lost Empire. Now next week we're going to be talking about a movie that I have actually seen quite a few times growing up, Lilo and Stitch. Which I gotta say, my viewpoint on this movie as an adult versus when I was a kid has drastically changed. How? Well, you'll have to find out when we get to that review next week. But right now I want to know what you guys think about Atlantis: The Lost Empire. If you've seen it, what did you think? Whatever the case may be, let me know in the comments below. And until next time, this is the real Mr. Robinson telling you there's only one. Hello everyone, I just wanted to say thank you all for watching my review for Atlantis: The Lost Empire. Make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell button to get notifications. Don't forget to follow me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, go check out my Twitch channel, and support me on Patreon. I'll see you guys in the next video, but until then, have a good day, and take care of yourselves.